Hi, it's Christine Coral again, and welcome to Meditation for People with Busy Brains. What we're going to cover today is basically mindfulness meditation, and it's a particular kind of meditation. There's many different kinds of meditation. You can focus on a mantra, you can pray rosary beads, you can um, chant. There's all kinds of different ways of meditating, but the kind of meditation that a lot of psychologists are teaching people these days is called mindfulness. And there's some really good research on the benefits of mindfulness and how it helps people with anxiety and depression and chronic pain and just general stress levels as well. So this is what we're going to focus on today is how to use mindfulness. And there's lots of great programs out there that you can explore and check out. There's probably a meditation center in your community that you can check out and take a live class from, and you can try out different teachers and different traditions. Everybody's has a slightly different style, so that's actually, I think, kind of a good thing to learn too, because you learn more about the essence of something if you try it from a few different teachers. And then there's online programs. I really like Zencast. I tell a lot of my patients to go check out the Intro to Meditation on Zencast, and John Kabat-Zinn has really popularized mindfulness in hospitals and universities and helped spread it around as a treatment for people with different medical conditions. And so John Kabat-Zinn has a number of audio recordings, CDs that you can buy that teach you how to meditate too. So those are some good starting points, but we're going to cover, I'm going to focus particularly on why a lot of people have trouble meditating or think they have trouble meditating when they're actually not. But first of all, let's start with what meditation is. Some people, like John Kabat-Zinn, talks about it being a particular kind of way of paying attention without judgment, and so sort of non-judgmental attention. It's an awfully big pen. Let me make it a little bit smaller. And then a lot of people who come to see me for OCD, I often get them to read the book Brain Lock by Jeffrey Schwartz, or You Are Not Your Brain, is a more recent book. And I've heard Schwartz talk about mindfulness being similar to focused attention, where you're directing your brain to focus on one particular thing at a time. So, and really completely having that experience instead of your mind wandering and being somewhere else. And I've even heard some people call it curiosity. So I'll just put this Schwartz, Kabat-Zinn, if you're interested in any of these writers. And curiosity, actually there's a book by the same name by Todd Kashdan. So what we're going to do is kind of a very simple intro to what this thing is, this particular kind of paying attention. And then if any of you listen to Zencast, you'll know that Gil Fronsdale, in one of his classes, I remember him saying that he really thinks of mindfulness as embodiment. So actually being in your body, having the experience that you're having right now. But essentially what it is it's this kind of calm awareness where you're just letting things happen and you're paying attention to them while they're happening. So you're not trying to make anything go away. This is a very, very important skill for dealing with anxiety and depression and pain, because when we fight these things, when we try and make them go away, often they seem to get even stronger sometimes. And if we can let those so-called bad feelings be there, then we lose the part of our suffering that's due to resisting our current experience, and we can just let it be there. It's like, okay, well, I'm anxious now and I'm having a sad day, and I can let that be there. And so this is why mindfulness is becoming such a big component of many different types of treatment protocols, depending on what it is that you're looking at, because we're getting such great results in terms of preventing relapse, of anxiety and depression, and stress reduction, and apparently there's some more stuff coming out showing that it's really good for your brain as well. So you can certainly read Schwartz for more information on how meditation is good for your brain. He's written quite a bit about that. But there's some really interesting MRI studies, and it's really starting to show that maybe we can even rewire our brains for the better when we start to do this crazy refocusing of our attention over and over again, which can feel crazy at times because it's like, why am I doing this again? So there's lots of benefits, but let's take a look at, why our brains don't shut up. Okay, so I'm going to do a really bad drawing here. So there's my little gingerbread guy. Okay, actually I should have given him fingers. There's my bad fingers. I can't draw and talk at the same time. That's really awful. Okay, so here's our gingerbread guy, and he's got, actually maybe I'll get rid of his face. There's his brain and his spinal cord. And then there's nerves that come from out of the spinal cord into different points in the body. So we have, and there's receptors on the end of each of these nerve fibers. So the receptors, when one hand touches the other, they pick up the signal and then send the signal to the brain. This is very simplified. If I do a pain class, I'll explain this in more detail. But so let's say we've got our little, got our little gingerbread guy. So we've got a hand here. Okay, that's connected to a brain. Okay, and if we wear a ring on the hand, then there's receptors receiving the signal from the ring. And then what happens is, because the signal is always there, the ring never goes away. Eventually, the part of the brain that's receiving the signal, that gets this signal, goes, that's boring. And it stops feeling it. And we call that habituation. It's like a Psych 101 class right now. So we call this habituation because we just don't pay attention, whether it's a ring or a watch or anything that we wear continuously for a long period of time, or actually even perfume. If you wear perfume, you stop smelling it. Everyone else around you can smell it, but a lot of people can't smell their own fragrance after a while because the brain goes, oh, that's not important. I don't need to pay attention to that. And so if something's boring, it stops paying attention to it. But what happens is if we take the ring off and there's no more signal coming from the hand anymore, the brain sort of goes, because it's so used to receiving that stimulation, the absence of it, the brain's kind of going, what's that? And it notices when the ring is gone, and so it starts generating its own signal. So it sends its own signal back, and we have the sensation. It feels like we feel the ring more when it's gone than when it's actually there. Now, we don't get mad at ourselves when that happens. We just go, oh, that's interesting, and we kind of assume it's some little brain glitch that's happening. And we don't get frustrated because we know eventually it will calm down and go away. Same sort of thing when you have phantom limb pain. So if somebody loses an arm, in an accident, or that needs to be amputated, what can happen is the part of the brain responsible for receiving the arm from the signal notices that the arm is missing. It's not receiving any signals from that missing arm anymore. It starts to generate its own signals. And so people can get the sensation that their missing limb is still there, even though it's not there. So it's literally, the sensation is coming from your head, not in the way that most people think that, but it's a real sensation, but the brain is generating that missing sensation. And it's the same sort of thing when we are talking all the time, right? So, we use, there's different studies on this. I don't know which one to believe. There's one that I heard, men use 2,000 to 3,000 words a day, women 5,000 to 8,000, and I've heard some say 20,000 words a day. I'm probably closer to the 20. I've never counted how many words I use in a day, but we use a lot of words. So we talk a lot, and we hear other people talking to us. We watch TV. Even when we're reading, we're hearing the words in our head. So what happens is, when our brains are sitting in our head and we're trying to meditate. So here we are sort of peacefully meditating. Okay, there's our spinal cord. And we're quiet. That's, again, really bad. Smiling, meditating. Maybe I should close his eyes. He's meditating. But the language centers of the brain are kind of going, where are the words? And they start to generate them themselves. So when it's quiet, because the language centers are constantly receiving all the stimulation, they're working overtime, they will keep talking. So it's not you who's doing the talking, it's actually your brain doing the talking. And what we think about depends on a number of different things. Just like a song can trigger different thoughts. Remember where we were when we first heard that song. Our mood can trigger certain thoughts. So if we're in a sad mood, we're more likely to have sad thoughts. If we're in a happy mood, we're more likely to have happy thoughts. So when we are trying to focus, our brains aren't going to cooperate with us. It's going to be like this hum of the air conditioning in the background or noise in the background. Just like if you were trying to meditate and there was a jackhammer outside. You can still meditate even though there's a jackhammer outside. In fact, once you become more skillful at meditation and practice, that won't be such a big deal. It's preferable to have a quiet environment, but it's certainly not necessary, and it certainly doesn't happen very often in my house. I made my husband take the kids out as they kept wandering in and wandering by. So I'm doing this really fast so that I finish before they come, because I don't often get quiet moments in this house. But that doesn't stop me from meditating. Ideally, if you can have that nice quiet space and set it up, but busy life, lots of noise. Not all of us can live in a monastery, although sometimes that does sound pretty good. So what happens is these words keep coming at us, and we have to learn to be patient with ourselves. So that's a key component of the practice. So there's these different attitudes that we try and cultivate with meditation. John Kabat-Zinn has come up with a really nice long list of them. Patience is certainly up there among them. And this patience is, some days we'll have a meditation where it seems like we're peaceful and blissful and everything's great and we're really focused, and other times where we're agitated and we can barely sit still and our knees hurt and it's annoying. And so this is why meditation is such a good practice for patience as well, so that we can be nice to ourselves while we try and do this. We also want to be non-judging, although easier said than actually. We can't really be non-judging. Truth be told, we can't stop ourselves from liking this or not liking that. We're just kind of wired for preferences. But all we can do, what we want to do in meditation, is practice adopting a non-judgmental stance. So what does that mean? It means that we do our best to notice when we're judging and go, oh, I don't like this. I notice that I don't like that. I notice that I really like this and I didn't want it to end. And just being aware of that, and then practice working with your preferences. It comes in handy when you're stuck in traffic and you don't want to be, and then you realize that it's not so much that you're suffering because you're stuck in traffic. You're suffering because you don't want to be stuck in traffic. So I hope that makes sense. And then the more you do this, the more you bring your attention to what you judge and like or want more of, or dislike and want less of, you can be okay with whatever is. Then another kind of, I'll just write, these are sort of the attitudes that we're trying to, that are fundamental to this practice. And you can see how when you have a busy brain, they come in handy, because mostly you're applying them to yourself when you're trying to sit there and focus. Then we also have beginner's mind. This is a concept where we are doing our best to not have expectations about how something should go and what direction it should take. So you're just going to sit there and maybe be curious. Here's where curiosity comes in about your experience. So I notice when I meditate in the morning, it's easier for me to focus, and at night I fall asleep. And when I'm in a meeting that I don't want to be at, I have a hard time staying awake. Like, you just start noticing different things and just being aware, and not going in, say, say for the meetings that you don't like. If you go into the meeting and say, oh, this is going to be awful, this is going to be terrible, and you're anticipating trouble, try and walk in not knowing how it's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be a bad meeting or not. 99 of the last 100, I got bored, but maybe this time it'll be okay. And sometimes you surprise yourself. Sometimes when you go in trying to drop those expectations, or at least be aware of those expectations, so it's very handy for meditation, you can see it actually turns out to not be quite what you thought it was, and that makes it a little bit better. So we often add to our suffering by anticipating trouble, borrowing trouble. Another concept is trust. And trust is really when we trust that this practice will work even when we're frustrated. You still should test things out on our own. You can do your own experiments and see what works for you. What might work for me might not work for you. But you can persevere with some course of action. And then the other one is non-striving. I talk a little bit about this in the insomnia class as well. The harder we try to fall asleep, the more likely it is we're going to be up all night. Same thing with anxiety. The more we try and make our anxiety go away, often the worse it gets. And the same thing with meditation. The more we try and, be this perfectly still being, the more frustrating it can be. It's like, oh, there's a thought. And so with non-striving, what we're really trying to do is not have a good meditation session, but just sit and be present with whatever comes up. So with this non-striving approach, we're really focusing on not whether or not we felt peaceful and blissed out at the end of the meditation session. It's just whether we did it or not. Because some days, it's just like working out in a lot of ways. Like, some days you'll have a good workout and you'll feel like you can run forever, and other days you're just dragging your butt behind you, and every step seems effortful and difficult. And the workout where you were just flowing isn't necessarily better than the one where you were dragging yourself. They both have benefits. They're both good. So I want you to think of meditation a little bit like exercise for your brain. Some days it's going to go easier than others, just like when you get on the treadmill or start lifting weights. Some days you're going to be into it and some days you're not, but you show up and you do it without worrying about whether it's a good day. So acceptance is another key attitude. So acceptance in this case means that we kind of roll with the punches. We go, okay, well, that just happened, and now what am I going to do about that? Without panicking. Eventually, without panicking. If you panic, then you have to accept the fact that you're panicking. Oh my God, I'm not coping very well with this. And then you go, well, it's okay not to cope very well with this. Who said I have to cope well with this? But acceptance is kind of not arguing with reality is probably a good way of putting it. It doesn't mean that you approve it. It doesn't mean that you don't work towards change if you think that's important. But it's accepting, for example, that people have different political viewpoints, and my boss is difficult, and I can't keep up with the laundry. and so if you get mad at those things, because that's kind of how the world works, it's a busy, noisy place with lots of different opinions and different people. If you're mad that things aren't different than they are, then you're headed for more frustration. We do want to put good stuff out there in the world, and be kind to each other and nice, and be as Gandhi said, be the change you'd like to see in the world. But that doesn't mean that we get mad about it. Does that make sense? So we can affect change and see that something's wrong and do something about it. Acceptance really means, accepting the reality of what's happening and then doing what's required of that situation. So it's not really, a lot of people get confused and think this is a really passive kind of attitude that we adopt in meditation, but it's actually quite active. It gives you a clear head so that you can see clearly what has to be done. Okay, and then we want gratitude, always a good practice. So we're thankful that we have bodies that can sit in a cushion, or if we're lying in a hospital bed, that we can at least focus. You focus on what's going well and what blessings you have. Always good. doesn't hurt, and gentleness with ourselves and with others. So we try not to do violence to ourselves by beating ourselves up and criticizing, and I'm a terrible meditator, and I'm this, and I'm that, and um, and also with other people, we don't want to think, oh, well, they're not doing it right, and I'm more spiritual or Zen than they are. It's not really what we're going for with all of this. We also want an attitude of generosity. That can be a very big practice. If you get deeper into meditation, you'll see there's practices on generosity and sharing with others. And you get lots of warm fuzzies back from that too. It's always good to be generous, and empathy for others and for yourself. And then finally, loving kindness. And there's a specific kind of meditation called metta meditation, where it focuses on phrases that you say for yourself and others. Um, I don't know that I'll talk about it in this class, but maybe in the future. But what you're trying to do with loving kindness meditation is generate feelings of warmth and compassion, much like grandmotherly love, for ourselves and for neutral people. And then the more practice we get, we try and generate those feelings for even people that we dislike, so that we can connect on a warm way with people. And it gives us more patience for people who are difficult too. It doesn't mean that we condone what they do and we can stand up to them, but not from a place of hatred. Yeah, I'm right, you're wrong kind of thing. And one of the reasons why I think puppy and kitten videos are so popular on YouTube is when you look at those videos, oh, it's so cute, it's so nice, and we get the warm fuzzies. That's kind of in a way what metta is as well. People I think like that feeling, and looking at those videos it can be a good way to reduce some anxiety as well, because those feelings are kind of incompatible with anxiety. But that's kind of, for me, the feeling that you're trying to generate for yourself and for other people. Just, oh, I'm so great. But not in a lot of people worry they're being narcissistic, but it's a kindness to yourself, that you want good things for yourself. Okay, so what we're going to do now. So we've covered why our brains don't shut up. We covered the attitudes that we're trying to adopt with meditation. And what we also want to do is sort of understand what's going on with meditation, what we're trying to do. So basically, when we're meditating, everybody thinks the meditation is when we make ourselves quiet and we're really focused and don't hear anything around us. And there might be kind of concentration practices that I'm less familiar with where you do that, but really what we're trying to do with mindfulness is we're still aware of what's going on around us, but we're redirecting our attention over and over again to some object of meditation. Usually we start with the breath. So really what the meditation is our minds wander and we bring it back, and our minds wander and we bring our attention back, and our minds wander and we bring it back. And each time, sometimes I'll even pump my arm and our minds wander and we bring it back, our minds wander. It's like doing a rap. It's actually the refocusing again and again and again. That's the part that exercises the brain and gets your brain basically better. We strengthen our brain's ability to focus where we want the attention to focus. And there's many different ways to do this. Certainly with the breath, I think the breath is one of the more challenging ways to meditate, and I think it's a great practice. And we usually start slow, tell people usually 10 minutes to start. There's some people who say 20 minutes, and I find some people find that challenging. If you can do 20, do 20. If you can do 10, do 10. If you can do 5, do 5, and start there. Even if you just do one mindful breath every time you think about it, I think that's a great start, and you're going to be further ahead than if you didn't do that, if you didn't practice this at all. So I'm a big proponent of start where you are and with what you can do. And some people don't like breathing meditation. I encourage people to persist with it, but if it's not your thing, there's other ways to meditate. So the idea with mindfulness is that you pick an object of meditation. I'm going to show you the breath right now, but it can be sound as well. So you can listen to music mindfully, and every time your mind wanders, you bring it back to the music or to the sound of the chimes or the sound of a jackhammer. It doesn't have to be pleasant. There's walking meditation where you pay attention to the feel of your feet on the ground, and you might even label while you're walking. Think right, left, right, left. That can help you focus. So there's different ways. I do a lot of mindful art. My husband does mindful photography. I've taught workshops on that. We might do a video of mindful photography, because that actually would be a good one that we could show you give you some exercises online. So there's different ways of coming at it. There's lots of things that you can read and do to learn more about what style of meditation suits you. So one of the ways to take pressure off yourself is to treat it as an experiment, and but also think of it as a brain exercise, just like exercise, right? Not everybody has to run. If you hated running so much that you were never going to do it, even though it's good for you, then you're better off going swimming, or well, not that swimming's less than running, but do you know what I mean? It's more suited for your preference. They're all good practices. So if you enjoy that, I think I even remember Natalie Goldberg, who wrote a book on basically mindful writing. She has a bunch of exercises in her book, Writing Down the Bones, but I think it's in that book where she talks about how she was with her teacher and said, "Oh, I hate meditation. I get so frustrated and dread it." And he said, "Well, why don't you make writing your practice?" And she said, "Can I do that?" And he said, "Well, of course." So I do think breathing's the foundation. So that's what we're going to do right now. So what I'll do is probably I'll do a audio recording only of the guided meditation, and what you can do is listen to that offline. I'll just make it about 10 minutes long, so you get a little intro for what it is, and you'll have your eyes closed anyway, so you won't need to see me while we do it. And then you can download or take it with you. Eventually you don't need, like, a lot of people do like guided meditations because it helps them focus when they hear a voice. But I encourage people to eventually get to the point where they don't need it, where you just practice by sitting, because it's handy, it's there all the time. And what I'll do is I'll probably do little snippets of different kinds of meditation that you can do. So, but for the breathing meditation, let's talk a little bit about posture and how you're going to sit when you're meditating. So when you, a lot of people will sort of sit on a cushion when they meditate. So I'll just draw a little stick guy here. There's our stick guy. And sitting on a cushion there. And hands in your lap. Sometimes it helps to put another little cushion on top. Let me erase that a bit. So there's a cushion, and then if I move the arms, then you can put your arms on top of the cushion that's on your knees. Actually, sometimes even with your legs, it can be helpful not to cross them too much. So you don't want to sit like in full lotus. You can even do that if your legs have a tendency to fall asleep. So we've got a little cushion on your lap, and you're sitting on a cushion on your knees or on your butt. And usually when you're sitting on the meditation, so say here's a little meditation cushion. So they kind of look like that, if you get them in a meditation store. Or some bookstores have them too. You actually don't want to be sitting right in the middle of the meditation. You tend to sit more towards the edge. You're just trying to prop your butt up a bit and have your hips higher than your knees, and that can prevent your legs falling asleep a little bit. Not completely, though, in my case. And so, in a good store, if they have someone who understands position, they can find the right cushions for you. You can also get cushions that are kind of half moon shaped as well, and you can get bigger cushions if you're a taller person as well, to boost up the height that you sit at. So you can sit just semi cross-legged on your cushion. You can also turn your round cushion on its side. So you have it kind of up like this. And then what you do, if you want to sit, I think it's more Thai style. I forget the name for it. This is how I usually sit. So we've got the stick person here, and their knees come down here, and your feet are here. And then I usually have a square cushion called a zabuton underneath me, and then I have my feet hanging off of the edge, and then you just have your arms on your lap here. So there, that's a side view of a person sort of sitting. So you have the cushion on its side, kind of supporting your butt, and then your feet hang off the side, and that helps it keep you from your feet from falling asleep a little bit. And that's often a comfortable position for a lot of people too. You can also get meditation benches. So they are little benches like that. So you sit, here, and your knees go under. I don't know how to draw that. Actually, how would I draw that? Your knees kind of go underneath. So you've got the little meditation bench here. And your feet hang out underneath the bench. So they can show you in a store how to do that. Some people like the benches too. They're also kind of compact because they often have hinges and the legs kind of fold up like that. But nothing wrong with sitting in a chair. A lot of us don't do a lot of yoga, which you can do mindfully, by the way. So feel free to sit in a chair. Often when you are sitting in a chair, there's our chair there, it can help not to have your hands. You can even have the cushion on your lap, so then your arms, you're not pulled forward or hunched forward so much. But to leave a little space in between you and the backrest, and that helps keep you awake. And you want to maintain this posture of dignity. Often if you hang out with meditators, you'll hear that term. So straight back, with your head looking forward, or maybe slightly cast down. You can meditate with your eyes open too, if you like. Some traditions do that. I tend to meditate with my eyes closed. Just my preference, but it's certainly okay. Sometimes it's good when you're sleepy to keep your eyes open. So these are some of the different sitting positions. You can certainly meditate lying down. That's often, especially if you're not feeling well, then that's perfectly fine to meditate. Or often when you do take a class, you'll spend some time meditating on a yoga mat on the floor, so that's fine too. And then you can use whatever supports that you need. Often a good idea to bring a blanket as well, or have a blanket handy, because we tend to get chilly when we meditate as well. So there's our postures for meditating. So feel free to sit in a chair if you want, and whatever way is comfortable for you. You can experiment a little bit with them. There is discomfort, typically with in the beginning with some of the initial postures until you get used to them. You do get better at it. Your body does start to adjust. Certainly you shouldn't be having any serious pain. You get kind of achy, right? Just like if you sat in any chair for a long period of time. But if you have any significant pain, or when I work with people who have chronic pain, certainly we make a lot of accommodations so that they can sit comfortably. The goal is not to be the perfect meditator. That's not what we want to do. So find what works for you, experiment a little bit, see what cushions work for you, or just use a chair that you've got in the house. And a blanket is nice too, so you don't get chilly. All right, so now what I'll do is I'm going to keep talking, but I'm going to close off the video here, and then this part will be available by audio recording. So that's all I want you to do. So just before I sign off, just start by practicing 10 minutes twice a day with your mindful breathing, and listen to the recording, and I'll see you later. That's it. That's all there is to meditating.